Shalom Aleichem, and welcome everyone as we are preparing for Shabbat. Parashat Tazria-Metzora, the first Shabbat in Chodesh Iyar, Ani Hashem Refuecha. May we see people having refuot, Yeshuot, right away, Be'ezrat Hashem. This week's Parashat Tazria-Metzora talks primarily about the Metzora, the person who gets tzara'at. Primarily the reason a person will get tzara'at, this affliction of leprosy, spiritual leprosy, would be to the sin of Lashon Hara. And Rabbi Salanter, Zechat Tzadik Libracha, explained what's the connection between last week's Parashat Shemini, and this week's Parashat Tazria-Metzora. And he explains that in Parashat Shemini, we ended off about kashrut, what a person is allowed to eat, what a person is not allowed to eat, what's kosher, what's not. And this week, we talk primarily about the punishment for Lashon Hara, of what comes out of a person's mouth. And Rabbi Salanter explained that a person has to be careful both what comes into his mouth, and a person has to be just as careful as what comes out of his mouth. They share a story that a group of well-meaning Jews went to a hotel, and the hostess, the Jewish hostess, was there, and they kept questioning her about the kashrut. Where do you get the meat from? Where's the chicken from? Who checks the vegetables? Which company you use? And she took their order finally. They agreed to the standard of kashrut that she had. She took their order, and as she's preparing the meal for them, she overhears them talking, and they're going into all sorts of Lashon Hara about tons of people. And she comes back and serves her meal. She says it's so weird, so odd, so interesting how people who are so concerned about what comes out, what comes into their mouth, about the kashrut that they're going to eat, are not as concerned as what comes out of their mouth. A person is a person inside and out, and all around he has to be worried and careful to be following the Torah. They once came to the Rabbimosheshimoni Rebbe, and they said to the Rabbimosheshimoni Rebbe, we have a person, he wants to come to the yeshiva, his family's not religious, we don't know if to accept him or not. And the Rabbimosheshimoni Rebbe said, let's look at how this person talks. And he said, what connection talking to that type of person? And the Rabbimosheshimoni Rebbe explained, he said, when a person goes to the doctor tells him, say, and stick out your tongue. And he looks for signs of infection. He says the same things in the spiritual world. You have to ask a person to see how they are by looking and listening to how they're talking. If they talk politely and nice, then you know they're a good person and they're spiritually well. Otherwise, we have other issues to deal with. Elaine L'Shabeach shares an amazing story. A Rebbetzin was traveling on a bus in Eretz Yisrael, and two seminary girls were sitting right behind her. And these two seminary girls were discussing a classmate of theirs who just got engaged the night before. And they were saying, I can't believe she got engaged. This girl, you know about her, she's like this, she's like that. And the other girl said, I feel so bad for the Hatan. Only if he knew what she really was like, how she sleeps, how she eats, how she this, how she that. And they were talking like that for a good 20, 30 minutes on this long bus journey. And finally, this lady sitting in front of them, this Rebbetzin, turns around and says to them, I want to thank you girls very much. They say, what are you talking about? They say, that's the boy who got engaged to your friend, that's my son. And now that I heard what this girl is really about, I'm going to go home right now and I'm going to tell him to break it off. These girls were mortified. They could not believe what just happened. And they started to say, no, we didn't really mean it. We were over-exaggerating. You know, girls, how they talk. It's not real. It's not true. We didn't mean it. And the Rebbetzin said, what your initial conversation sounded much more authentic than what you're trying to tell me now. I have no reason to believe what you're saying now. I'm going to believe everything you said before. And the girls cried and teared. And the Rebbetzin stayed adamant and said, that I'm going to tell my son. Why do people talk Lashon Hara? But people are not understanding what their words of Lashon Hara can do, how much damage it can cause. Because, hey, look, they spoke, they didn't realize, and then when they figured it out, they felt bad. You see, if we would understand that Hashem is the Father of all of us, Hashem is the Father of every person, which father likes to hear about his son or daughter that they're doing bad things? A father wants to have oneg, he wants to have delight from his children. A sinner of Israel is filled like a rimon of mitzvot. What does that mean? Hashem finds delight, he finds the good in every Jew. If a person goes ahead and says bad, he takes the word oneg, delight, and he turns it backwards, he makes a nega, and he gets sara'at. Something we need to think about, what our words can do, and how important it is to pay attention to what comes in, what comes out, and how that defines us as a person. I would like to move on to our second lesson from this week's parasha of Tazria-Metzora. In this week's parasha, we learn about the purification process for the Metzorah. The Metzorah is told to go to the Kohen will declare him Tameh or Tahor, and then if he is Tameh, he has to go and sit in solitude. He has to sit in isolation. His dwelling shall be outside the camp. The question that arises is, if his behavior was an antisocial behavior, shouldn't we put him amongst people, and create a group therapy for him, so he can learn how to be with people? And not be antisocial and say things to cause distress to people. He should learn how to be better with people. So Mordechai Kamenetsky Shlita shares a beautiful story to understand why a Metzorah needs isolation. And he says as follows. There was a man traveling from New York to Los Angeles. And he was a very, he had very specific details how he liked to travel. And so when he came to the ticket agent, he said, listen, I need a ticket. I need a seat by the window. The New York ticket agent said, no problem. He gave him the stub. He said, you're going to have the window seat. He takes the stub. He runs onto the airplane. He boards the airplane. He looks at his ticket. He looks at where he's stationed to sit, and he sees they gave him an aisle seat. Oh, he was so upset. The whole flight, he was upset. He couldn't believe it. They gave him an aisle seat. He was fidgeting in his seat. You can see he's trying to complain. Finally, the flight is over. He goes straight to the ticket booth, to the customer representatives and customer service, and he starts to complain. He says, I paid for a window ticket, a window seat, and they gave me an aisle seat. Now, this customer representative deals with these things all the time, and very politely said, did you perhaps ask the person sitting at the window to change spaces with you? He said, no, I couldn't do that. And the agent says, I'm very sorry, but why couldn't you do that? And the man said, I could not ask to swap my seat with the person sitting by the window because there was no one sitting by the window. You see, the truth is, when a person has problems, it's easy to blame everyone and everything. But a person really takes a deep look inside, he realizes that it's him. He realizes that he has the problem. And so in order for the Metzorah to understand that his problems, his ills, is not because Yenem, this person did that, and On Takzil, and he did like this, and this person did like that, and that's why I said that, and that's what I did that. The person has to realize that it's him himself, and he has to sit on his own. He has to sit in solitude and understand that it's him. There's no one sitting by the window, so why don't you switch your seat? Understand there's no one there, it's just you, and you have to work on yourself. And it's self-motivation that will lead to self-improvement. Let's look at one more important, vital lesson on this week's parasha. It says in the parasha, in Parashat Metzora, Ki tavo el eretz Canaan, when you come to the land of Canaan, asher ani noten lechem achuzah, that I give you as an inheritance, v'natati nega tzara'at bevet eretz achuzatchem. And it can be that a nega tzara'at, a lesion, will happen on the walls of your house. Imagine a Jew comes into Eretz Yisrael. He gets a house that belonged to a Canaani, who now is no longer in Eretz Yisrael. The Jew is there. He's happy. He's living. And all of a sudden, a tzara'at appears on his wall. How bad he feels. He's davening, please don't let the tzara'at get bigger. Don't let the Kohen say it's tamei. I don't want it to be demolished. This is my house. This is where I live. And all his davening doesn't work out. And then the Kohen comes and says that it's tamei, and they have to destroy the house. He's so sad. He's saying, Baruch Dainai Emet. And then with tears, as they're demolishing his house, they discovered a treasure. As Rashi tells us, the Canaanim, when they heard the Jews were coming, they hid their treasures in the wall. And now, when you get a nega tzara'at, you break down the house, and guess what? Now you found all this money. You can build bigger houses and live rich. But a person thought that what was happening, his whole life was coming to destruction. His house was being demolished. What's going to be now? And all of a sudden, it led to a very good event. The Rambam tells us, the one needs to accept the bad with the same joy as he receives the good, and hold back his anger. When a person says, Baruch Dainai Emet, he should say it with the same appreciation as if he says, Atov V'Ametiv. How is it possible? The Ramban goes on to say that it's the logical thing to do, because many times we see in life things look good at first, and in the end it becomes clear that what we thought was good was actually bad, and vice versa. What we thought was bad turns out to be good. Rav Yaakov Galinsky Tzeichen Tzadik L'Bracha shared a story that there was a young man, a bacher in yeshiva, who everybody felt bad for. Was not a bright person. No one knew how his future would come out. And one morning, this young man woke up and went and played the lottery. And to everyone's surprise, he won. And everyone started congratulating him on his good luck. And he told them, no, it's not good luck. It's because I'm smart. They said, what do you mean? He said, you don't understand. The night before, I had a dream. I never play lottery, but I had a dream. All of a sudden in the dream, I saw three numbers, 17, 18, and 370. And I was thinking, what's these numbers, 17, 18, 370? I realized that these are the lottery numbers, but the lottery number only lets me for 3 single digits. So I said it must be, I have to add all the digits together, 370, 17, and 18. So I added them together, and I got 415. I poured 415 down on the lottery ticket, and here we go. You see how my smartness made me rich? He won 5,000 rubles in that time. That's a very impressive sum. And someone sitting in the crowd there and said, I don't want to make a damper on the party here, but 370, 17, and 18 actually equal 405, not 415. The boy said, really? Really? Well, then it's a good thing that I don't know how to add. See, we really don't know what's good and what's bad, what's correct and what's a mistake. A deficiency could really be a virtue. A virtue could be deficiency. Our job is not to make calculations. Our job is not to make hajbanot. Our job is to simply sacrifice for our Creator and leave all assumptions to Him. Rabotai, with this, I want to wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom. Please, if you haven't yet done so, subscribe to this page, give a like, leave a comment, and you can email me as well. The email will be in the description. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you want to make an event in your shul, please let me know. And wishing everybody a Shabbat Shalom.